Standing security and military presence, so that diplomatic warfare is playing out with news propaganda, with military presence, with economic support, and also propelling a certain type of leadership that is seen to be leaning towards an ideology that is challenging what the Western hegemon used to be in that place.
In Mali, hundreds of Russian mercenaries have been fighting alongside the army since the end of 2021. They say they're engaged in counter-terrorism operations, but also serve to bolster the military regime. For Moscow, the Wagner Group enabled the Kremlin to gain influence without being officially present here.
50-degree heat, and we love it.
Yevgeny Prigozhin reportedly founded the Wagner Group in 2014. Back then, his private military company was focused on fighting in Ukraine. By the time of his death in 2023, Africa had long served as a new source of income. Payments worth millions of dollars are said to have flowed to the Wagner Group from countries like Mali and the Central African Republic.
Justice and happiness for the African peoples.
Russia delivered exactly what the new rulers in the Sahel region needed most: weapons, propaganda, and protection. Ulf Lessing heads the Konrad Adenauer Foundation Sahel office in Mali's capital, Bamako.
What Mali wanted was real weapons and help on the front line. Europe didn't want to take that kind of risk. Germany in particular was opposed to providing training with real weapons. I remember during infantry training for Malian soldiers, they had to use branches from trees or wooden guns to simulate the exercise. The Russians said, "What is this nonsense? We're the people you need. With us, you can go to the front line and fight." So Russia did what the West wasn't prepared to do.
We're about to meet someone who has seen Russia's work in Africa firsthand. We had to search for a long time to find anyone willing to talk to us on camera. Sergei Eledinov, a former Russian soldier turned security analyst, has invited us to his home. He has lived and worked on the continent for some 20 years. In the past, he has also had contact with the Wagner Group. He shows us his military memorabilia from Afghanistan and Angola.
It's not Russia that is winning. It's the Western powers that are losing. It has more to do with the absence of a stable, consistent policy. That is what has opened the door for Russia. They created a vacuum, and it was the Russians who moved in to fill it.
Niger, the West's last democratic hope in the region, would later follow Mali and Burkina Faso with another military coup. Russian flags could be seen in the crowds here too, a sign of Niger's new partner. The protesters attacked and destroyed the French embassy. Russia gained another friend in the region, General Abdurrahman Chani.
On this day, Wednesday, July 26, 2023, we are ending the regime of the Seventh Republic.
I want to say with all clarity, France condemns this military coup against a democratically elected president.
The new rulers arrested the president. He's been held under house arrest to this day. New judges were appointed for the courts. French troops and all of their Western soldiers were ordered to leave the country. Diplomats, journalists, and other French nationals departed too.
What we have in many countries of the region before the coup was not functioning democracies. It was elected leaders who were in place, and election doesn't mean that the way you govern a country is democratic and actually is effective. For me, it's not a failure of democracy as a system that we have. It is certainly failure of the way the countries were governed.
Political failure collided with competing interests from abroad. The region is rich in natural resources and strategically important, too.
We drive to Arlit, a center for uranium mining in Niger, where anger against France is especially strong. We journey through the desert in a bus for almost an entire day to get there. France once promised to turn this into a proper road, but nothing came of it. We had to negotiate for months to gain permission to film in Arlit.
Until the coup in 2023, Niger was one of France's leading suppliers of uranium. Around 20% of the uranium used in French nuclear power plants originated here. Arlit had 2 mines operated by the Orano Group, a company that's 90% owned by the French state. But today, everything is at a standstill. At one mine, the reserves are exhausted. The other mine had its license revoked by the military regime. It's unclear who will take over. One option is Russia. The Kremlin has taken over mines in other African countries, partly to circumvent Western sanctions.
We've come out with the director of the 2 mines. His team is measuring radiation levels around the machinery and in the area.
Look at the grey area there. That's where the residue is laid bare, completely uncovered. This pinkish area here has a thin covering, about 20 centimeters of clay. But even those 20 centimeters are not enough to contain the radioactivity, because normally you need a covering of at least 1.5 meters. At the moment, we're at 20 centimeters and the work has been suspended.
20 million tons of radioactive waste has been left here by France. What looks idyllic is in fact highly toxic.
This water here is full of sulfates, nitrate, and uranium. That's what makes this reservoir so dangerous. And it's close to the aquifer that is used by the people of Arlit. According to studies we've seen, the water has started seeping towards the groundwater.
Children who grew up here are exposed to elevated levels of radiation throughout their lives. The wind carries the radioactive sand into the city, just 7 kilometers away. This is where former miners and their families live. International scientists tell us that houses, cutlery, and vehicles here are contaminated. But it's the mine's former workers who are the worst off.
There was no real monitoring to ensure security precautions were being adhered to. People worked without personal protective equipment. We just worked as we were, without masks or gloves.
A number of widows tell us that their husbands fell ill and died after years of working at the mines.
The doctor didn't tell us that it was caused by the radiation, but he had cancer of the blood. I didn't receive any support from the beginning of his illness until his death. And I don't receive anything now either.
A city that was built to supply France with cheap nuclear power. The mine's former workers feel abandoned. Issoufou Amani is one of them. He now runs a kiosk.
Is this supposed to be my plan B? A mechanic who runs a kiosk?
For 22 years he worked in the mines for Orano. In Niger, a country where some 80% of people still have no electricity.
People are poor today. They don't even have enough to eat. They have to take out a loan to buy a packet of pasta. Someone who worked in the mine has to take out a loan. He may need 5 or 10 days to get you the money. Do you understand? Is that okay? Does that make a good impression?
We contact Orano and ask the company about its responsibility for the radioactive contamination of this area, but we receive no reply. Anger in Niger against the former colonial power runs deep.
The new military regimes in the Sahel promised a more self-confident Africa, one that would not be coaxed into any deals with the West. Military leader Ibrahim Traoré laid down clear conditions for any foreign companies wanting to operate in Burkina Faso. They must transfer 15% of their shares to the state and pass on their expertise to local workers. The same applies to the Russian group Nordgold, which was granted another gold mining license in April 2024. Russia is making a concerted effort to gain access to Africa's natural resources, from gold to uranium and other minerals. But Moscow is also looking to win hearts and minds. During this cycling race, attended by Ibrahim Traoré, troops secured the capital like a fortress, assisted by soldiers with Russian insignia. Russia's Wagner Group provides bodyguards for Traoré, while Russian propaganda helps to promote his image. As a charismatic, uncompromising leader, celebrated like a pop star. A youthful source of hope, a resistance fighter against the West, whose influence extends well beyond Burkina Faso. Videos generated with the help of AI have been posted on social media. They feature international stars like R. Kelly, Rihanna, or Justin Bieber singing his praises without their consent. Voices misused in digital propaganda. Bring us peace, bring us hope, wash away the pain.
But appearances are deceiving. For government critics and journalists, life in Burkina Faso is becoming increasingly dangerous. For us too. Working on this documentary often puts us in danger. We are constantly being watched and followed. Outside our hotel, in restaurants and cafes, men sit and watch us. Our phone conversations might be tapped too.
As long as you're here with me, you needn't be afraid. My reputation will help you. Do you want to film? Go ahead. I give you permission.
Since the coup, young people gather each night at traffic circles to stand guard. If they perceive any threat to the regime, they're reported to the authorities.
They're just there. And if they see someone suspicious, someone who appears strange or is behaving suspiciously, they immediately call on people to mobilize. With social media, they can reach the whole country. They're night watchmen. It's important. You have to be vigilant. They're volunteers. Volunteer nighttime guards.
Once we're on our own again, we start to feel uncomfortable. But what happens next surpasses our worst fears. 3 heavily armed men in civilian clothes force us into their car. They hold us captive. No one knows where we are. It's only hours later that they allow us to go free.
Man spürt das Gewehr an der Seite.
I could feel the rifle by my side. I couldn't see who they were working for exactly. We didn't know their names. They didn't tell us anything. They just took us away, brought us to a field, and then spent several hours interrogating us in the car. They wanted to know everything about me. They said, "You're a journalist, you're coming with us." They took our phones, they took our bags, they searched everything, asked loads of questions. And to be honest, I was really afraid. I didn't know what would happen to us. Others don't get off so lightly.
Human rights groups have highlighted numerous cases of regime critics who've disappeared without a trace. Human Rights Watch recently documented the case of 3 journalists who were arrested in March after criticizing the regime in their reporting. This video is said to show them later in a staged interview on the front line, being forced to fight against Islamist militants.
The military leaders are also finding themselves in a situation where they don't know exactly what to do. They are not producing the kind of result that they expect to produce in terms of security, and I think they are trying to, to figure out what to do, and to make sure that they keep power, and to make sure that there are no demonstrations. They are neutralizing all the voices that could be against the way they are being ruling the country.
The next day, we go back out with musician Don Sharp de Bartoro. We decide to film only with a cell phone and to stay in the car so we don't attract attention.
On every traffic circle, you see the flags of Mali, Niger, and Russia. They're the only developed country that was willing to help us out by giving us arms to fight with. When we needed them, Russia was there and said they could supply them. They were the ones who helped us. If people hang up your flag, it means they love you.
An artisan festival in Ouagadougou. This year, one special guest is getting a lot of attention.
I like this.
The Russia stand has been organized by a local initiative and financed by the Kremlin. The new partnership with Russia was also on display at a summit in St. Petersburg in 2023. Putin needs new allies and has been finding them in Africa.
Relations between Russia and Burkina Faso are marked by friendship and long-standing tradition. Last year, we celebrated 55 years of diplomatic relations.
Putin is seen by many in Burkina Faso as a political partner who acts on equal footing. That's evident not only at summits, but also in songs that celebrate him as a liberator.
Vladimir Poutine qui roule dans la nuit sombre, il reste éveillé. Vladimir Poutine qui roule, stratégie en tête, il joue sa partie pour son peuple.
A song for Putin's birthday. He returned the compliment, sending additional supplies of military equipment and grain. Burkina Faso's schools teach about Russia. Children also learn the history of the Soviet Union. Russia provides first aid courses. Then there's the Russian Orthodox Church in Ouagadougou. And open-air movies with Pan-African role models. The Kremlin shown as a benefactor and ally against an evil West.
It was accompanied by insidious propaganda that the West and Europe should have countered. I believe the Africans themselves will realize at some stage that it's better to maintain relations with Europe than to have trade or even financial ties with groups